I'm so glad you're here with us today. Please help me to welcome my wonderful special guest. This is Christian Flores, also known on Instagram as Crikey, it's Christian. Christian, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, Jimmy. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me and my audience. We on this show often talk a lot about how dinosaurs are awesome in all the different ways that they are, but you work with an interesting area of modern and prehistoric animals, and I want to find out all about that. But first things first, Christian, I
Yes.
have to ask, Christian Flores, what's your favorite dinosaur?
Oh man, the question that you ask everyone. Okay, I should have been ready for that. For me, I would say that my favorite dinosaur is Tyrannosaurus Rex. I just can't get away from it. So much that we know about it, but still so much that we don't. It's very familiar to everyone in the realm of paleontology, but still so enigmatic at the same time.
Absolutely, yeah. It's definitely one of the big gateway species because learning about T Rex allows us to learn about so many other things. There's never a wrong answer to this question,
Yeah.
but you've also got the right one, so that's good. Your area of expertise, though, as much as we all enjoy dinosaurs, you don't focus on dinosaurs specifically, though. What's your area of scientific communication?
So for me, it's a little bit of everything, really. Where I'll talk about a prehistoric mammal or reptile one week, and the next week it might be completely different. You see something that's modern on our planet today. So there's that bit of a balance that I try to put together in my posts and what I bring to people to see.
Absolutely. So you and I actually got introduced as a result of a social media giveaway, where as a number of folks who are really fascinated by paleontology and really delivering that information back to the world. But there's something that you did earlier this year that is absolutely phenomenal. Tell us about how you celebrated Croctober. You shared information about like 24 different species of crocodilians. I didn't even know there were 24 species of crocodilians out
Yeah.
there. We always think just like alligator and crocodile. I know there's two types of alligator, but tell me
Yes.
about Croctober. Let's dive into that.
Yeah, so Croctober is done by many zoos and sanctuaries as a means to use the month of October to celebrate crocodilians around the world. Now, October is usually synonymous with Halloween,
Hmm.
but for me, it's a completely separate holiday that I care about. So, for what I wanted to do was to do the exact same thing. I wanted to bring crocodilians into the limelight for people, regular, everyday people, to see what they are. Now, normally, when many old documentaries would call them, these killing machines that are so efficient at taking down prey and taking down a wildebeest and a zebra, which, yeah, some can do. But let's also talk about they're also just animals and they live in
Yeah.
their environment and they fill a role in their ecosystem. And yeah, a lot of people don't know that there's 24 species alive on our planet. There are two alligators, like you said, the American and Chinese alligator. There are six caiman. There's the gharial and tomostoma, and then there's 14 species of crocodile. So the crocodiles have
14
the
different species
majority
of
of the
crocodile.
numbers, but just overall, they fill so many different ecological niches. And at the same side, I also talked about prehistoric crocs and sort of the different forms that they take as well. But really, what it was just, again, to bring these animals in the limelight, not as killing machines, but as animals that fill a role in the ecosystem and have such an important role on the planet.
What do you think is the biggest misconception people have about crocodilian animals?
I think it's the lack of intelligence. I think that
Really?
is the zoological world, and currently what we're finding more and more with reptiles in general, not just crocodilians, is the level of intelligence. We have many people that are learning that they can respond to their names, and you'll have a group of, let's say, four American alligators that someone's training, and they'll call for Bill the alligator, and Bill's the only one that walks up, and the other three stay behind. And then they all have their own name. You call them individually, and they'll come individually by their name. And that's just one example of what crocodilians are able to process in their mind. Now, because to the brain to body size ratio, they do have a smaller brain by comparison. However, what they do with that brain power is completely open to what we've been learning more and more. So, again, like I said, reptile intelligence, especially with the crocodilians, is meant to be explored further.
So it sounds very much like we're revisiting some of the old misconceptions that we had about some of the other dinosaurs, like Stegosaurus, for example, with the brain the size of a walnut and the smaller ganglion by its hips, and they figure there's not enough room for thought in this head, so it's got to be a dumb lumbering animal. And it sounds like what you're saying is they're doing that same application to crocodiles and reptiles and alligators today. But you're saying there's no validity to that. We're actually finding some complex relationships and intelligent behavior in these animals. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. And again, there's still so much to learn. There's still so much for us to see. I know one example that they found recently was that they found saltwater crocodiles, which are up north of Australia, actually following along sea turtle migrations. So this is something that was actually pretty recent, where they saw these saltwater crocodiles that were sort of going in the area where these sea turtles were going to lay their eggs. And they're starting to realize, like, okay, well, is this something that they remember over time? Is this an instinctual instinct purely of how they're seeing these sea turtles come by? But again, that's just another example of just the brain power coming in behind them.
That's crazy. I love that. That's awesome to hear. So in all the different kinds of crocodilians and all the reptiles that you've studied, do you have a favorite croc? We ask what's your favorite dinosaur. What's your favorite croc?
It's actually a tie. I have two favorite ones, and I think it'll make you laugh. My favorite is actually the largest and the smallest species of crocodilian. At the same time, they're tied. The largest is the saltwater crocodile, like I just mentioned, from northern Australia to around Southeast Asia is their range. And the smallest is the Cuvier's dwarf caiman, which lives in South America and is roughly about 5 to 6 feet long at the most. So they're very small relative to other crocodilians. But those tie as my two favorite.
Adorable little guys.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So in the work that you've done, you've worked with the American Crocodile Sanctuary based out of Belize. Is that right?
Right. So ACES is the American Crocodile Education Sanctuary. What ACES does is they're based in Belize, and what they do is educate the public and help preserve American crocodiles and more or less crocodiles, like I said, in the country of Belize. So a lot of this habitat that they live in is also waterways where the locals are fishing, using to wash their clothes and whatnot, and just a common communal area for the people of Belize. Unfortunately, that's also American crocodile habitat.
Really?
And because of which Belize in some areas are trying to industrialize and expand, and that's cutting down mangrove habitat where the American crocodiles have a vital role in the ecosystem. And conflicts do occur where, unfortunately, there is the loss of both crocodilian and human life because of it. But what Belize does what ACES does in Belize is educating those in the local government and local communities that crocodiles are meant to be saved, and they have a vital role to maintaining populations of fish and other species instead of just thinking of them as these animals that are trying to come out and get us. So
you've got a lot of passion about this subject, and it's very clear. What inspired this passion for you?
So growing up, for me, I was the classic animal dinosaur kid. I loved reading about animals and dinosaurs. I loved talking about them. My parents mentioned when I was a kid that every week or so I would get a new stuffed animal or animal toy, and I would go to show and tell at school, in elementary school, and I would just talk so long to the kids about it. And some kids were really into it. The teachers took their own knowledge from it, but it was just something that I always just did. And for a lot of these passions, when people get older, they kind of grow out of it, depending on what it may be. But for me, it never left. And as now an adult, it's what's brought me here today to talk about, again, life on our planet as a whole.
So let me ask you this. Has this led off into an avenue of having exotic pets growing up?
It did. I had many, many pets growing up, from hermit crabs, guinea pigs, tons of fish, lizards and snakes. I had a little bit of everything. So
really? It's so important to change that narrative, that misconception a lot of people have. So it's wonderful that not only they're doing the work, but you also have a platform to kind of help draw more attention to the work that's being done and get more people to be enthusiastic about it. Because when stories about these kind of animals break, people's first reaction is not usually, wow, look at this keystone animal and the vital role that it has in the environment. The reason we're bringing this up is that all of the news articles about it said this. Every few years, one of Florida's most famous residents who isn't a talking mouse makes its way across the path of humans. Sometimes out in the wild, sometimes closer to home, and sometimes with a shocking amount of self-awareness. One mistake that humans keep repeating is to look at these massive roaming reptiles and call them monstrous dinosaurs, or saying that Jurassic Park came true. That's not fair. Don't toy with our emotions like that. What is true, however, is that these alligators were here first, and they are not dinosaurs. And they also have no respect for your fences. And they never did. This is a news report that was very popular last week here in Florida because, you know, in the state of Florida, we are known for our wetlands. We're known for our different swamps. Gators in this area are not only a very popular tourist attraction at places like Gatorland and a lot of different mini golf courses and things like that, but they're also known to play football and basketball very well. But in this story, a gigantic alligator was walking across a golf course in Naples, Florida. And one of the things about living here in Florida is if you see an open body of water, in any 72-hour period, an alligator has been in that open water. And that is a fact. You can Google that. You can fight me on it. Alligators in your water, 72-hour period, if it's open and they're there. This is their place first. They said it's a dinosaur. And say, look at this gigantic dinosaur stomping around on the 18th green. And that's the part that drives me crazy to hear that. I'm sure it affects you too. Because crocodiles and alligators, even though they've lived this whole time, are not dinosaurs, are they?
They're not. Yes, so crocodilians and dinosaurs, there are some differences. They're not the exact same thing. They actually have a relation to each other, which I'll explain in just a second. But the main differences. So when you think of an alligator or crocodile, and if anyone who's watched that video, you'll see it walk. The way that they carry themselves is their weight is off to the sides. So it's almost as though they're walking as if they're doing a push-up. So anyone at home can do this as well. If you go on your hands and knees and you have yourselves in that push-up position, they walk like this. It's kind of off side to side. For dinosaurs like us, actually, their weight is directly down. So it's their weight's on their legs. So the way they walk is supposed to be their weight is down on their legs, and they're walking and centering it that way. Even the quadrupedal dinosaurs like Stegosaurus and Triceratops, it's the same thing. Their weight is under them. That's how they walk. And for the crocodilians, it's off to the sides. So that's one of the differences as well. There's some other things like their ankles. The way that their ankles are shaped are different to where our crocodilians, the way, I forgot which ankle bone exactly is, but it's almost like a slot and a peg. The two bones fit together, and it promotes flexibility for them. One is they go down in their very squat position on the ground, but also when that alligator is doing a high walk, it also allows for them to push up and do that. For dinosaurs, on the other hand, their ankle bones don't do that peg position. Instead, it's more like a hinge joint. So it goes back and forth. This is a cast from emu foot, which would be my dinosaur example. But like
it counts. Emu is a dinosaur. Birds are dinosaurs. It absolutely counts.
So yes, like I said, that ankle hinge joint is going to go back and forth and back and forth. It's still debated on whether it's the most efficient way to do it or what that difference lies there. But overall, that's just one of the differences anatomically. In terms of the relationship-wise, they actually are in a group together, distant but still related. With that, they're in a group known as the archosaurs. So dinosaurs and crocodilians belong to this group known as the archosaurs, where it has crocodilians, the pterosaurs, and the sister group to that is the dinosaurs. So that means that crocodilians and dinosaurs do have a relation, which means crocodilians and birds have a relation together. And a fun fact that many people don't really know is that crocodilians are more closely related to birds than they are to other reptiles like lizards, snakes, and turtles and tortoises. So that's something that many people don't know, but again, they're not the exact same thing.
I know there's a couple other differences that separate them out. In the video, this guy's doing a very high walk. So that extra bone that they have in their tarsals and their carpal region, that's being employed there to help them to stay upright and move themselves pretty quickly. That's another misconception people have, is that alligators are fast. They will move quickly. And so if you see one out in the wild, you got a straight line. Don't even zigzag. Just go straight and get away from there, because they will catch you down. There's another difference, though, that these animals have. And actually, we're going to need to pull some props together for this. So as a expert on crocodilians, do you happen to have a skull or anything nearby, or any kind of a visualization of a reptile skull that we can take a look at?
I do, actually. I have this. This is the skull.
Holy cow.
Varanus salvadori, also known as the crocodile monitor. So, like I said, crocodile monitors are from New Guinea. They're a varanid monitor species. So they also have a relation to mosasaurs, as varanids have been found to have a relation to the marine reptiles, the mosasaurs. You can even see, just by looking at it, how mosasaur-like it is. And that's kind of with that common relation that they have.
Yeah, no, it's terrifying. Does this have there's a thing that a lot of mosasaurs have, and it's found in a lot of other kinds of marine reptiles as well. In order to help them process their food more efficiently, this guy clearly has enough teeth as it is. Yes. But there's a thing called the pterygoid palate. It's an extra set of teeth on the upper jaw, seen in snakes, mosasaurs, and xenomorphs. Does that occur in this animal too?
As far as I know, I'm not quite sure. Again, these teeth are quite efficient. These animals, crocodile monitors, aren't living in the ocean. However, they're living in arboreal lifestyle. So these guys are up in the trees. So if you think of the tree canopy, it's its own sort of ecosystem where a lot of the animals either get away by hopping branch to branch, hopping in water that might be below the tree line, or flying away for birds and bats. These guys, the reason why they the kind of thinking wise these guys have such long teeth is because when you're trying to catch something that's hopping away from you, jumping into water, flying away, you want to have these very well developed long teeth that once you catch something, you are not going to let it go.
No, it's a crocodile monitor with Gorilla Glue teeth. Those things are, once they get you, that's crazy. Looks like a child's drawing of a monster, but this thing lives in trees, you're telling me.
Yes.
Okay, I can sleep better now. I want to compare that to something real quick, if I can. So this is a land-dwelling creature. Did not live in trees as far as we know, but this is the skull of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Now, based on the comparison between your crocodile monitor and my T-Rex here, there's a couple of things that I noticed that are different between the reptilian and the dinosaur skull. One thing is they both have nostrils. So we see there's the nose opening, what we call these fenestra, is the openings in the skull there. And then they both have the eyes. Now yours, that little disc thing, what do we call that? That's the ring?
Yes, that is the sclerotic ring. So I know both birds and some reptiles do have the sclerotic ring. I believe, as far as I know, it's for protection for the eye. But yes, the specimen does have its sclerotic rings.
And we found that a lot of dinosaurs have sclerotic rings as well. My T-Rex skull doesn't include that. I didn't opt for that accessory, but we can get it later on. But there's something else that really separates these guys apart, is that in between the eye and the nose, there's another set of what we call preorbital or antorbital fenestra. So holes in front and behind the eyeball that we don't see necessarily in reptiles. Any reason as to why that might be?
As far as I know, it'd be muscle attachment. Obviously, with some of these animals, especially a Tyrannosaurus Rex, the jaw muscles and where they attach are going to be a bit different. Tremendous bite pressure. Whereas with some lizards and crocodile monitors, I don't believe it's necessarily its huge crushing bite force that they need, but more it's, look at the teeth. They already do a majority of the job. So there are some of those differences with hole-wise within the skull and muscle attachment.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for showing that. So we've learned so much about these animals because of engaging research like this and because of personalities who make these things really jump off the screen or out of the bones of the museum. And with your username on Instagram being Crikey, it's Christian, I'm going to ask, who are some of your influences?
So, if it's not very apparent already, Crikey's Christian was based off out of Steve Irwin. Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter, was a huge inspiration for me as a kid. And even the name itself, Crikey is Christian Crikey, is one, synonymous with Steve Irwin, obviously. And that's representing my inspiration, the person that drove me into wanting to talk about wildlife in the first place. Also, Crikey is an actual defined word. It means surprise, excitement. And for me, that's represents what I talk about. I'm excited and I feel this sense of happiness and passion when I talk about life on our planet, past and present. So just putting it together, it rolls off the tongue, and just that's what makes me me with my name.
That's awesome. Especially for someone who has an appreciation for all different kinds of animals. That's right in the vein of the legacy of Steve Irwin. So you're carrying that torch. Or in this case, giant varanid monitor skull straight from the nightmares. But that's awesome. That creature has gigantic teeth.
Yes.
But in your course of study and in your experience with all these different kind of animals, have you found anything with any bigger teeth than that?
There are many things with bigger teeth than that. One example would be another crocodilian. This is actually the tooth of Dinosuchus riograndensis. So one of the largest crocodilians to exist ever on the planet, as far as we know. So this tooth came out of the Aguja Formation of Texas. And like I said, Dinosuchus would have been around 40 feet long as a school bus. And actually a 2020 study from this year did show us there was some back and forth of whether Dinosuchus happened to eat dinosaurs or not. This animal is from the late Cretaceous period, and we thought that just like modern alligators, it ate fish, large turtles, other reptiles, but we weren't incredibly sure just yet if it was into dinosaurs. So in the late Cretaceous period, there were plenty of hadrosaurs and ceratopsian dinosaurs around that time. And with this 2020 study shows that within the bones, they've recently found, or throughout history, they found bones with the tooth marks of some type of predator. And as they then looked into those wounds, the pathologies, they then found it very much fit the teeth of Dinosuchus.
So now we're finding some smoking jaw evidence potentially that this creature fed on little baby dinosaurs. And you know, this is one of those things that if you apply the scientific knowledge and looking for the evidence and the proof of it, you can find that takes time. That takes 2,020 years for us to get to that level of information. Yeah, but then when you start to apply how these other animals interact today, and that's the major thing about paleontology, looking at the past so we can understand the present, you can see that crocodiles and alligators in the wild will jump up and they'll eat antelopes, or they'll attack livestock and cows and deer and things like that. And since these hadrosaurs and the dinosaurs that stomped around at that time were filling those same ecological roles, it makes sense that a hungry predator wouldn't necessarily discriminate between "I only eat fish today" versus "this is available." So,
exactly.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is an incredible tooth, though.
Yeah, thank you very much. This isn't one of the largest of teeth. This one's only about a little over 2 inches long. Some of the largest ones could get 5 to 6 inches alone. So we're talking almost tyrannosaur-sized teeth that are eating dinosaurs out of the water. So,
all right, let's pump the brakes a little bit on that. Okay.
We're actually making some replicas and making some copies of this tooth. And
that's a replica of this tooth?
This is a replica of the exact same tooth right here.
That's awesome.
So with the giveaway, we're actually giving away 3 of these Dinosuchus teeth. So there will be 3 people who have the chance to actually win a copy of my own tooth that I own. And it is really one of a kind of a replica.
That is spectacular, man. That's going to be so great. Oh, I feel excited for whoever wins that. That's going to be amazing. And you got 3 of those that you're going to be ready to give away. And so where can we find information about your giveaway when it's time?
So it should be coming up in the next 2-3 weeks or so. If you follow Crikey Christian, you'll find out all the details coming up. But actually, there's a little more than just these teeth that are coming in the works. I spoke with a certain paleontologist, Mr. Dean Lomax, and he and I exchanged some conversation, some ideas. And actually, not only will people in this giveaway have a chance to win a copy of my Dinosuchus tooth, they can win a copy of Prehistoric Pets. Prehistoric Pets is a book by Dean Lomax, exactly, that goes into the animals of. So anyone who's watching this video, again, we're going to have a giveaway coming up. It's going to be tons of fun getting people involved where you can win, like I said, a one-of-a-kind replica as well as a really, really nice piece of literature that's coming up for people.
And the links to get to Christian's accounts and to get to his profile and to see the information about the giveaway and to find all that information that you'll want to see are going to be in the description down below of this video. Christian, I got to say, man, thank you so much for spending your time with me here. This has been a lot of fun. We've learned a great deal. You've shown us that crocodiles and alligators aren't dinosaurs, but they're related. And you've shown us some terrifying animals that still live today. And it's good to know that they're in the trees. So that's something that I'm not going to be looking out for at all ever.
Right.
Christian Flores, thank you so much for being with us here today. Appreciate you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Jimmy. Appreciate it.